I cradled my 8-month pregnant belly, weaving through the hospital corridors with a thermal bag in hand. Inside was George's favorite, turkey and Swiss on sourdough, slathered with his fancy mustard. That morning, the September air brought a hint of rain through our bedroom window. George kissed my forehead before his shift, murmuring, "Take care of our little miracle." Our little miracle. Those words lingered as I neared his office at Metropolitan General Hospital, where he worked as a cardiologist. For 3 years, we'd fought to have a baby, facing endless setbacks and 2 devastating miscarriages. When those 2 pink lines finally appeared, George broke down in tears, holding me tight in our sunlit kitchen. I whispered, "Dr. Scarlett Lewis," testing my married name paired with my future doctorate. 6 months from now, I'd defend my psychology dissertation. George was already dreaming of our future, a cozy house, weekend barbecues, teaching our daughter to ride a bike. My swollen ankles ached as I entered the cardiology wing. The afternoon shift buzzed, nurses darted between rooms, monitors beeped steadily. George's office waited at the hall's end, his nameplate shining, Dr. George Lewis, Cardiology. Pride swelled in my chest. I met George during my undergrad days, volunteering at this very hospital. He was a resident then, charming and confident, his dark eyes piercing my soul. On our 3rd date, he brushed hair from my face and said, "Scarlett, you'll change the world. And I'll be right there with you." I tapped lightly on his door, expecting his warm "come in." Instead, silence, then a strange shuffle. Was he with a patient? My watch read 2:15 p.m. His schedule was clear. I turned the knob and stepped inside. The thermal bag slipped from my grip, thudding to the floor. There was George, pressed against his desk, white coat open, hands tangled in the auburn hair of a woman I knew too well. Stacy Ryder, the new nursing supervisor. She'd linger at our cafeteria table, her compliments about my pregnancy glow icy and insincere. Their kiss was ravenous, her legs wrapped around his waist, medical charts scattered beneath them. His hands moved over her with a familiarity that screamed routine, not a fleeting lapse. Time froze. I stared at my husband's hands that had touched my belly that morning, now exploring her with practiced passion. Stacy's fingers tugged at his belt with urgent need. In 30 seconds, my world shattered. A raw, broken sound escaped me, half gasp, half sob. They jumped apart like caught teenagers. George's face paled, then flushed red. Stacy smoothed her uniform, her smeared lipstick and messy hair betraying her eyes gleaming with cruel glee. "Scarlett," George stammered, his voice cracking. "Don't." My whisper was barely audible. I tried to step back, but my legs wobbled. "Don't you dare say my name." Stacy laughed, hopping off the desk, adjusting her skirt. "Well, this is awkward," she said, her tone light, as if she'd been caught sneaking a snack, not wrecking my marriage. George shot her a warning glance, but she ignored him, her stare predatory. "Scarlett, I've been waiting for this. Pretending to like you at hospital events? Exhausting." "Stacy, stop," George said, his voice weak, unconvincing. "Stop what, darling?" She sidled closer, her hand trailing over his chest possessively. "Stop telling your wife the truth? That you haven't loved her for years? That you only stayed out of pity after her miscarriages?" Her words stabbed like knives. "That's not true," I choked out, my voice alien to me. George's silence roared louder than any words. "Oh, honey," Stacy sneered, dripping fake sympathy. "Did you think a man like George would settle for you? Look at you, waddling, swollen like a cow. When did you last see your own feet?" "George," I pleaded, my voice breaking. "Tell her to stop. Tell her she's lying." His eyes met mine, and I saw pity, worse than hate. "Scarlett, we need to talk. But not here. Not like this. Not like this?" Desperation clawed at my chest. Not like catching my husband kissing another woman in his office? Not like learning my marriage is a lie while I'm 8 months pregnant? Our child, he said softly. Stacy's laugh cut like glass. Is it, George? Didn't you mention her business trips during her fertile windows? All those psychology conferences? Her words hit like a punch. How dare you? I whispered, my hands shielding my belly. How dare you question my babies? Oh, spare me, Stacy cut in, stepping closer. Your pitiful wife act is tired. George and I have been together 8 months, Scarlett. 8 months. Do the math. 8 months. My pregnancy's length. Their affair began right after I got pregnant, right after George's tears of joy in our kitchen. Something inside me broke. Stay away from my husband, I said, my voice steadying. Your husband? Stacy's eyes gleamed with spite. Sweetie, he hasn't been yours in forever. Believe me, I know. She edged closer, her expensive perfume choking me, the same scent I'd smelled on George's clothes for months, mistaken for hospital smells. Guess what? She hissed, her voice low, just for me. He was with me when you had false labor last month. Said he was stuck in surgery? He was stuck, all right, stuck with me. Stop, I said, raising my hand. Enough. She didn't stop. Her smile turned cruel, twisting her face into something vile. Want to know what George says about you, Scarlett? How he hates your clinginess. Your endless tears? How he regrets marrying you. Stacy, enough, George muttered, but he stayed rooted, watching his mistress tear me apart like a bystander in his own life. No, George. She needs the truth. Stacy's voice grew sharp. You're planning to leave her after the baby's born. We've picked out apartments. You've lied to her face every day while she plays perfect little housewife. The room spun. I grabbed the door frame, but Stacy blocked me. Running away, Scarlett? That's your thing, right? Dodging tough talks. No wonder George needed a real woman. Move, I said, my voice tight. Make me. Her challenge hung heavy. I looked to George, pleading silently for the man who vowed to love me to step in. He just stood there, hands in pockets, staring at the floor. Move, I said again, stronger. Stacy smirked. Or what? Going to cry to your uncle? Tell directors on the mean kids are picking on you? My blood froze. Uncle Elliot got me the volunteer job where I met George. He walked me down the aisle when Dad couldn't. I never flaunted his role, never told most people we were related. Yep, Stacy said, seeing my shock. Pillow talk spills all your secrets, doesn't it, George? George finally spoke. Stacy, you're crossing a line. Am I? She spun to face him, hair flying. Or am I just being real? She's been living a fairy tale for 2 years, George. Time to wake her up. Her face was inches from mine. Your husband doesn't love you. Your marriage is done. Honestly, looking at you now, I get why he wants better. I made my mistake then. I tried to shove past her. Stacy pushed back, hard. My pregnant body, unsteady, stumbled. I grabbed for anything, but found only air. I crashed to the floor, landing on my side, hands cradling my belly. Pain seared my hip and shoulder, but it paled next to what came next. Stacy loomed over me, her face twisted with rage and triumph. Stay down, she hissed. Right where you belong. Then, a moment that would haunt me for months, she kicked my pregnant belly. The pain was unbearable, physical, emotional, a violation that ripped me apart. I curled around my baby, gasping, as she raised her foot again. Stop. A deep, commanding voice cut through. not George's. What the hell is happening? Uncle Elliot stood in the doorway, his face pure fury. Two nurses stood behind him, alerted by the noise. Stacy's face went pale as she realized who saw her attack. Director's son, she stuttered, stepping back. I can explain. Explain this. Uncle Elliot crossed the room in 3 quick steps, kneeling beside me as I writhed in pain. His hands were gentle but swift, checking my pulse, his eyes searching for injuries. Call 911. Now. Uncle Elliot, I gasped, trying to sit up. The baby. Stay still, sweetheart. Just breathe. Help's coming. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned with anger as he glared at George and Stacy. George finally seemed to grasp the horror of it all. Scarlett, I'm sorry. I didn't know she'd. Shut up, Uncle Elliot snapped, his tone icy. Not another word from either of you. Sirens grew louder, closer. Wetness spread between my legs, my water had broken. Too early. 8 months was too soon. The baby's coming, I whispered, fear overtaking rage as contractions ripped through me. Uncle Elliot gripped my hand. We've got you, Scarlett. You and the baby. It'll be okay. But worry flickered in his eyes, betraying his calm words. As paramedics rushed in, working on me while George stood frozen and Stacy shrank into a corner, I made a silent vow to my unborn daughter. This wasn't over. They had no idea who they'd crossed. Before we continue, please comment which country you're watching from. We love hearing from our global family. If this is your first time here, subscribe. Your support brings more epic revenge stories to life. Keep listening. The delivery room at Metropolitan General had seen countless births, but none like mine. My daughter arrived 8 weeks early, barely 4 pounds, and with her came a cold, fierce rage that settled deep inside me. I named her Mabel, after my grandmother, who'd outlasted the Great Depression with sheer grit. They whisked her to the NICU before I could hold her, but in our fleeting eye contact, I saw fire, unbreakable, like the women in our family. She'll be okay, Dr. Beckham said as they prepped her for intensive care. Tiny but tough. Her lungs are strong, and her vitals are stable. Uncle Elliot held my hand as they wheeled me to recovery. His silver hair was messy, his suit rumpled, but his grip was firm. I've spoken to the legal team, he said softly. George and Ms. Ryder are suspended pending investigation. Suspended, I echoed, my voice distant from the meds. What I saw today, Scarlett, an assault on a pregnant woman in my hospital. His jaw tightened, like when he'd faced down my childhood bullies. This isn't just personal anymore. Through the fog of painkillers, I heard voices outside, George pleading, Stacy's high-pitched defense. Uncle Elliot stood, moving to the door with purpose. If either of you comes near my niece or her daughter, security will remove you for good, he said, his voice ringing down the hall. This is your only warning. Elliot, please, George's voice broke. I need to see her. To explain. Get a lawyer, Dr. Lewis. Both of you, Uncle Elliot shot back. Their footsteps faded. He returned to my side. They are gone. They won't be back. I closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Stacy's malicious face haunted me, her foot striking my belly. George's silence as I begged for help. The moment my perfect marriage revealed its lies. My phone buzzed, a text from Gina. On my way, flight lands in 3 hours. Don't decide anything yet. My fierce sister, who'd warned me about marrying young, who never trusted George's charm. A Chicago lawyer, she dismantled opponents with precision. I needed her now. Hours blurred with medical checks, legal forms, and quiet talks with Uncle Elliot about next steps. At 11 p.m., Gina burst in, red hair wild from her airport sprint. I nearly collapsed in tears. Oh, sweetie, she said, hugging me gently. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Have you seen her? I asked. Mabel? I saw her first thing, Gina said. Mabel's gorgeous, Vi, tiny but perfect. She's got your chin and your stubborn streak. I can tell already. We sat quietly, two sisters who'd faced countless battles side by side. Gina was my maid of honor, despite her doubts about George. She held my hand through both miscarriages, flying from Chicago instantly. Now, she was here in my darkest moment. Tell me everything, she said firmly. Don't skip a single detail. I spilled it all, the humiliating scene, Stacy's vicious words, George's betrayal, her violence. Gina listened, her green eyes hardening with every word. When I finished, she stayed silent for a long moment. They don't know what they've started, do they? She finally said. What do you mean? I asked. Her smile was razor-sharp. They attacked you in Uncle Elliot's hospital, with witnesses, while you were pregnant. Legally, that's a goldmine. I shook my head, too drained to follow. It means we'll ruin them, she said. Professionally, financially, personally. Stacy will regret knowing your name, and George will see betraying you was his biggest mistake. Gina, I just want to forgive them? To fix it for the baby? She leaned in, intense. Vi, some betrayals can't be undone. Some people deserve consequences. She grabbed her phone, scrolling fast. I'm calling Melinda Florence, the best divorce attorney around. She owes me. We'll protect you and Mabel. I'm not sure I'm ready. You don't need to be. That's what family's for. She squeezed my hand. Focus on healing and your baby girl. I'll handle the rest. That week, as Mabel grew stronger in the NICU and I recovered, Gina launched what she called Operation Justice. Mrs. Florence, a silver-haired lawyer with kind eyes and a fierce reputation, visited me in the hospital. I've seen the police report, she said, settling into a chair with her briefcase. Stacy faces assault and battery charges, worsened because you were pregnant. George didn't hit you, but he's not innocent. We'll push for adultery, abandonment, and emotional distress in the divorce. She pulled a thick folder from her briefcase. This case will draw attention: hospital assault, premature birth, cheating. The media will swarm. Are you ready for that? I pictured Mabel fighting in her incubator, George's hands on Stacy, her foot in my belly. Let them stare, I said. I've got nothing to hide. Mrs. Florence smiled, and I knew why Gina trusted her. Let's get started. 3 weeks later, I brought Mabel home to our suburban house, where George and I had planned our life. We'd painted the nursery yellow, wanting the baby's gender to be a surprise. Now, it felt like a tomb of broken dreams. Gina took leave from Chicago to help with legal battles and new motherhood. She moved into the guest room, her fierce energy filling the house. Without her, I'd have been lost in paperwork, sleepless nights, and heartbreak. George keeps calling, she said one morning as I fed Mabel. 15 times yesterday. Uncle Elliot threatened a restraining order. What does he want? I asked. To see Mabel, explain, beg forgiveness. Gina's voice was flat. Mrs. Florence says to log every call. It'll help with custody. Custody? My stomach twisted. The idea of Mabel with George, or Stacy, was unbearable. He won't get unsupervised visits, Gina said, reading my face. Not after this. Mrs. Florence is sure. My phone buzzed on the table. Another text from an unknown number, but George's desperate tone was clear. Please, Scarlett. I messed up, but Mabel's my daughter too. Let me explain. I deleted it, like the 27 before. Stacy's assault hearing is next week, Mrs. Florence had said last meeting. Ready to testify? I was beyond ready. I wanted to face Stacy and tell the world what she did. But soon, I'd learn this betrayal had layers I hadn't yet uncovered. It began with the insurance papers. Gina was sorting Mabel's NICU bills when she found a $2 million life insurance policy George took out on me 6 months ago. I'd never known. Vi, did you know? Gina asked, her voice tight with worry. No. Why would he? I froze, the truth hitting like a slap. When was it taken out? March 15th. Right when his affair with Stacy began, per Uncle Elliot's hospital records. We locked eyes across the kitchen table, Mabel asleep in her carrier between us. The insurance policy felt like a lead weight in my hands, hinting at something far worse than cheating. People get life insurance all the time, I said, my voice shaky. Especially with a baby coming. $2 million on a psychology student with no real income, and he never told you? Gina grabbed her phone. I'm calling Mrs. Florence. We need Uncle Elliot to check George's access to medical records and drugs. A chilling thought hit me, too awful to say aloud. Gina, always sharp, was already ahead. That false labor last month, she said softly. George claimed he was in surgery, but he was with Stacy. What did you eat or drink? Did he give you anything? My hands trembled as it came back. He made me tea. Said it'd ease the Braxton Hicks. Some herbal mix from the hospital pharmacy. And you had false labor an hour later. Our eyes met, the truth dawning with sickening clarity. He's a doctor, Gina said slowly. He could get drugs to trigger contractions. One's hard to spot in blood tests. Why? Why cause early labor? Premature babies don't always make it. And grieving widowers get sympathy, and $2 million. The room spun. I recalled George's special drinks, vitamins for the baby, teas for morning sickness. His constant concern for every symptom now seemed sinister. We need proof, I whispered. We'll get it, Gina said. Mrs. Florence knows FDA folks who can test for drugs. We'll check the tea, vitamins, everything. If this is true, if George tried to, I couldn't finish. Then he's not just a cheater. He's a would-be killer. Days blurred with secret investigations and quiet calls. Mrs. Florence tapped her contacts while Uncle Elliot pulled George's prescription logs. Gina added security cameras and new locks. Just in case, she said, but I noticed her double-checking windows at night. Thursday morning, Mrs. Florence called as I fed Mabel. Her voice held grim triumph. We found misoprostol in the tea, she said. It induces labor. Not enough to ensure miscarriage, but enough to spark contractions in a high-risk pregnancy. My legs buckled. I sank into a chair. So he tried to kill me and the baby. Yes. For the insurance money and freedom with Stacy. What's next? We go to the DA. George faces charges for attempted murder, insurance fraud, conspiracy. Stacy likely knew about the policy, per emails we found. Mrs. Florence's tone softened. Scarlett, this will hit national news. A doctor, his pregnant wife, attempted murder, a violent mistress. Are you ready for the spotlight? I looked at Mabel, her wise eyes watching me. She'd survived her father's attempt to end her before birth, fought into the world 8 weeks early. Like me, a survivor. Let them look, I said. Let the world see who George really is. But the story was about to get even darker. On a chilly October morning, 6 weeks after Mabel's birth, George's arraignment began. He stood in a sharp suit, flanked by flashy lawyers I'd seen on city billboards, his face full of defiance. I sat in the front row with Mrs. Florence, Gina beside me, Uncle Elliot behind us. Mabel was safe at home with Rosa, the ex-military nanny Gina insisted on for security. Dr. George Lewis, the judge said, you face charges of attempted murder, conspiracy, insurance fraud, and adultery. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor. George's voice was firm, confident. His eyes met mine, cold and calculating, no trace of remorse. Stacy's arraignment came next. Out on bail for the assault, new charges, conspiracy and accessory to attempted murder, put her back in custody. Her perfect hair was limp, her face pale and haggard. Miss Stacy Ryder, how do you plead to conspiracy, accessory to attempted murder, and assault? Not guilty, she whispered faintly. Reporters swarmed us outside the courthouse, microphones in my face, cameras flashing, questions flying. Mrs. Lewis, how do you feel about your husband's arrest? Was it for insurance money? Is this your uncle's vendetta? Mrs. Florence steered me through, her grip steady. No comment, she said firmly. Mrs. Lewis will speak when the time is right. At the car, I froze. A fierce instinct, the one that got me through sleepless nights with Mabel, demanded I speak. I have something to say, I told Mrs. Florence. She looked worried. Scarlett, we agreed it's better to. No, I faced the reporters, back straight, voice steady. George Lewis tried to kill me and my unborn daughter for insurance money to run off with his mistress. When their drugs failed, Stacy Ryder attacked me to finish the job. The crowd went quiet, cameras snapping wildly. My daughter survived because she's a fighter. I survived because my family protects me. Now, George and Stacy will face justice in court, where the truth will shine. I stared into a camera. To any woman betrayed, made to feel worthless, you are stronger than you know. You deserve justice. The drive home was silent. Gina held my hand while Mrs. Florence handled calls from reporters and lawyers. At the house, Rosa greeted us, Mabel in her arms. All calm here, Rosa said, her tone crisp. Some flowers and gifts arrived. I locked them and stored them in the garage for security checks. That night, as I fed Mabel and watched the arraignment coverage, my phone rang. An unknown number, but I answered. Is this Scarlett Lewis? A nervous voice, lightly southern. Yes. Who's this? I'm Sarah Chin, ex-Metropolitan General Staff. I saw the news about your husband. I have information you need. My heart raced. About Stacy Ryder? Or Dr. Beckham? Dr. Beckham, who delivered Mabel so calmly during that terrifying night, had left the hospital suddenly, Uncle Elliot said, for a job elsewhere. Can we meet somewhere private? Sarah asked. I'm scared to talk on the phone. We set a meeting for the next morning at a coffee shop across town. I took Gina for support, leaving Mabel with Rosa, who had strict orders to call if anything felt off. Sarah was a small woman in her 30s, eyes anxious, hands shaky as she held her coffee. She'd been a surgical tech at the hospital for 5 years until quitting 3 weeks ago. I can't keep quiet anymore, she said abruptly. It's eating me up. What do you know about Stacy? I asked softly. She's done this before, Sarah whispered. Not exactly like you, but targeting women, wrecking relationships, twisting things for her gain. She pulled a manila folder from her purse. Dr. Beckham was married with 2 kids. Stacy went after her husband, a farmer rep who visited the hospital. My stomach dropped. What happened? Stacy seduced him, like with George. When Dr. Beckham confronted them, Stacy accused her of stealing drugs from the pharmacy. She planted evidence, faked records, made it look like Dr. Beckham sold drugs to fund gambling. Gina leaned in, lawyer mode on. Got proof? Sarah nodded, sliding the folder over. I was on inventory when Stacy asked me to help with medication log issues. It seemed normal, supervisors often need paperwork help, but she had me sign forms showing drugs missing during Dr. Beckham's shifts. My hands shook as I opened the folder. Inside were copies of inventory sheets, medication logs, and surveillance stills of Stacy in the pharmacy after hours. Dr. Beckham lost her license, Sarah said. Her husband divorced her, took the kids. She lost everything. Stacy got promoted to nursing supervisor soon after. Why stay silent? Gina asked, her tone kind, not harsh. I was scared, Sarah admitted, tears in her eyes. Stacy had allies in administration. I needed my job. But seeing her attack you, a pregnant woman, I couldn't stay quiet. I thought of Dr. Beckham, so kind during Mabel's birth, another of Stacy's victims, her life shattered by that woman's cruelty. There's more, Sarah said softly. Stacy was planning to frame you too. How? I asked. She asked about you for months, your family, Uncle Elliot's role, your finances. She fixated on your old anxiety meds, the ones you stopped when you got pregnant. I'd quit my anxiety pills the moment I learned I was expecting, choosing therapy instead. George had seemed so supportive then. She wanted to paint you as a drug abuser, Sarah said. Like you were taking unprescribed meds, mixing stuff that could hurt the baby. If the misoprostol worked and you lost Mabel, she'd claim you caused it by self-medicating. The coffee shop felt stifling, air thick with the weight of Stacy's schemes. She didn't just steal George, she aimed to ruin my reputation, my credibility, maybe even my freedom if Mabel hadn't survived. Will you testify? Gina asked Sarah. Tell the prosecutors everything? Sarah nodded, hands trembling. That's why I'm here. I can't let her destroy anyone else. We spent an hour reviewing Sarah's evidence, her detailed notes on Stacy's manipulations. Leaving the coffee shop, I saw Stacy clearly, not just a cheater or a hothead, but a predator who crushed lives for her own gain. She'd misjudged me, though. That was her fatal mistake. That afternoon, Mrs. Florence called with news that felt like victory. The prosecutors adding charges, criminal patterns, evidence tampering, fraud conspiracy. Dr. Beckham's on board to testify about Stacy's attack on her. What about George? I asked. His lawyers want a plea deal, claiming Stacy manipulated him, that he's a victim too. The nerve of that defense ignited my anger. He tried to kill me, Melinda. And our daughter. I know. We are pushing for serious prison time. The evidence is airtight. Still, something nagged at me. Stacy's calm at the arraignment, George's high-priced lawyers, they hinted at deeper secrets. Then Rosa handed me a manila envelope, her face tense. Delivered an hour ago. No sender, but it's cleared security. Inside, a photo of George and Stacy in a hotel room with a third man, Vincent Caruso, tied to organized crime, per news reports. A typed note read, "Your husband owes big money." The insurance wasn't just for a new life, it was to stay alive. A friend. The photo made everything click, George's lawyers, Stacy's confidence, their elaborate plot. They were backed by people skilled at erasing problems for good. Gina, I said, voice shaky. Call Mrs. Florence. Now. What's this? I handed her the photo and note. Her face paled. Vi, this isn't just cheating or fraud anymore. No, I said, glancing at Mabel, asleep in her carrier. It's crime syndicates, money laundering, and killers. The stakes had shifted. But I wasn't the naive woman who brought George a sandwich 6 weeks ago. I was a mother now, with everything to fight for. I'd show George, Stacy, and their criminal allies what happens when you threaten my family. Mrs. Florence called the FBI, who confirmed our fears. George laundered money via fake hospital equipment buys for 18 months to pay gambling debts to Caruso's crew. The insurance wasn't just for Stacy, Agent Rebecca Santos said at Mrs. Florence's office. George owed Caruso's people $3 million. Your death would have cleared his slate. And when the misoprostol failed? I asked. Plan B. Stacy's attack was meant to end what the drug started. Your death and the babies would look like a tragic accident after a fight. The cold calculation of their murder plot should have broken me. Instead, it forged my resolve into steel. What do you need from me? I asked. Agent Santos gave a grim smile. Help us take them all down. The plan was bold and risky. I'd wear a wire and meet George at our old house, pretending to discuss Mabel's custody while grabbing more belongings. He'll try to sway you, Santos warned. Apologies, coercion claims, promises to change. Don't buy it. And don't hint we know about Caruso. What if he suspects I'm with the FBI? Get out fast. Agents will be nearby, but your safety comes first. Gina hated the idea. It's too dangerous, she said in my new, secure apartment, chosen with Rose's help. What if George spots the wire? Then we miss our shot at Caruso's crew, I said. Gina, they tried to kill me and Mabel. If we don't stop them, they'll try again, or hurt others. I looked at Mabel, 3 months old, thriving despite her early birth. Her cheeks were fuller, her smiles bright. I'd do anything to keep her safe. The meeting was set for Tuesday. George sounded eager on the call, hopeful I'd listen. His optimism was almost sad, if it wasn't so deadly. I prepped all weekend with Santos's team, planning for every outcome. The wire was tiny, transmitting to hidden receivers. If trouble hit, help was seconds away. Remember, Mrs. Florence said Monday night, this isn't just for the criminal case. George's words can sway custody too. Let him talk. Let him show his true self. Tuesday dawned cold and grey, mirroring my mood as I drove to the house where I'd dreamed of raising kids with George. The white picket fence and red brick stung, not for what was, but for the lie I believed. George waited in the kitchen, looking worn. Weight loss, dark circles, a haggard face. But seeing me, his eyes lit with desperate hope. Scarlett, thank you for coming, he said. For giving me this chance. This isn't about chances, George, I said evenly. It's about Mabel, what's best for her. Of course, that's what matters. He pointed to the table, set with coffee and my old favorite pastries. Sit. We need to talk. I stayed standing, hand on a chair. Talk about what? You trying to kill me for insurance money? Your mistress attacking me while pregnant? You just watching? His face fell, and for a second, I almost pitied him. Almost. I didn't mean for this, he said, voice cracking. I got in too deep with bad people, made awful choices, but I never wanted you hurt. Bad people, I said, keeping my face blank, hiding I knew about Caruso. George ran his hands through his hair, a move I once loved. I had gambling debts. Borrowed from the wrong people. When I couldn't pay. They threatened you? I asked. They threatened us all, you, me, the baby. I was protecting us, Scarlett. The insurance, the other stuff, it was to pay them off and get us somewhere safe. His lies flowed so easily, so sincere. I saw now how he'd played me for years, always the victim, twisting betrayal into sacrifice. So you chose to murder me instead? I said. No, God no. He stepped closer, eyes begging. The drugs were just to start early labor. Premature babies have issues sometimes. Insurance companies don't dig deep when it's medical. My blood froze. He spoke of killing our daughter like it was a business plan. And if I died from complications? His silence screamed the truth. What about Stacy? I pressed. Was seducing her part of your brilliant scheme? His mask fell, eyes turning cold, calculating, something I'd missed before. Stacy was a mistake, he said flatly. A slip I shouldn't have made. But she was useful, access to records, prescriptions. She knew how to game the system. Useful enough to frame Dr. Beckham, I said. His head jerked up, shock in his eyes. How do you? I know plenty, George. Like your money laundering through fake equipment buys. Like Vincent Caruso owning $3 million of you. His face went pale. Scarlett, you don't get it. These people, if they find out. What? Try to kill me? Already survived that. He lunged for the phone, but I was quicker, blocking his path. Don't even try, I warned. You're wired, he said, voice flat, defeated. This is a setup, just like our marriage, you're concerned for our family. His face twisted, desperate, dangerous. You've got no clue what you've done, he said softly. Caruso doesn't forgive or forget. You think you've won? You're more naive than I thought. Maybe. But I'm not a killer. He lunged again. Bigger and stronger, but I'd trained with Rosa in self-defense for 3 months. I fought for Mabel's future, he fought for himself. I dodged and kneed his solar plexus. He crumpled, gasping. The door burst open. FBI, hands up, agents shouted. George was cuffed and read his rights in seconds. Agent Santos checked on me. You okay? Did he say anything useful before he knew? Everything, I said, handing over the wire. Insurance fraud, drugs, Caruso, all on tape. As they dragged George away, he looked back. This isn't over, Scarlett, he said quietly. It never will be. He was wrong. It was about to end for good. George and Stacy's trials gripped the state, dubbed the hospital betrayal case. Court TV broadcast every moment. I became a reluctant public figure, a symbol of surviving betrayal, but also the strong woman I always could be. George's trial was first. The evidence crushed him, his taped confession of fraud and attempted murder, medical records showing his drug access, financials tying him to Caruso's laundering. His lawyers tried it all, claiming coercion by crime lords, saying I framed him with Uncle Elliot's help, even arguing he planned my death to save us from Caruso. It flopped. Dr. Beckham testified about Stacy ruining her life. Sarah Chin detailed Stacy's fraud patterns. Uncle Elliot recounted finding me on the floor, Stacy gloating over me. The biggest shock was Vincent Caruso's testimony. Arrested with his crew from George's Wire, he took a plea deal. Lewis came to us 18 months ago, he said, looking ordinary in his suit. Owed us from sports bets. Kept promising payment, then pitched the insurance scam. Did you push Lewis to harm his wife? The prosecutor asked. We told him to handle it, as long as we got paid. If his wife died, that was his call. His casual talk of my murder chilled the courtroom but sealed George's fate. The jury took under 4 hours. Guilty, attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, laundering, racketeering. 35 years to life, no parole for 25. As George was led away in chains, his final glance held no regret, just bitter anger at his failed scheme. Stacy's trial was quicker, but just as rewarding. She faced charges for assaulting me, framing Dr. Beckham, and aiding George's fraud. Taking the stand was a mistake her lawyers couldn't stop. She played the victim, claiming George manipulated her, promising her everything. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said, wiping fake tears. George said Scarlett was leaving him, cheating, planning to take everything and vanish with the baby. So you pushed her and kicked her pregnant belly? The prosecutor asked sharply. I was upset. I thought she'd ruined the man I loved. I wasn't thinking straight. And framing Dr. Beckham for stealing drugs? Were you thinking straight then? George's idea. He said she was stealing, endangering patients. Her lies crumbled under the evidence. The jury saw through her act, convicting her on all counts. She got 15 years, 10 for attacking me and Mabel, 5 for the Beckham conspiracy. Ms. Ryder, the judge said, Your calculated cruelty and lack of remorse are staggering. You attacked a pregnant woman, aiming to harm her and her child. You ruined a doctor's life for your own gain. No leniency is warranted. As Stacy was led away, she glared at me, venom in her eyes. This isn't justice, she hissed. It's revenge. Sometimes, I said softly, knowing she heard, they are the same. 2 years had passed since the chaos that upended my life, and there I stood at the podium in the university's grand lecture hall. The room buzzed with the energy of young minds, their faces turned toward me with curiosity and anticipation. My doctoral dissertation on trauma recovery and post-traumatic growth in victims of intimate partner violence had not only been accepted but praised with the highest honors. It felt like a milestone I had earned through fire. Now, I had secured a position as an assistant professor of psychology, with a focus on victim advocacy. It was more than a job, it was my calling, born from the ashes of my own pain. As I adjusted the microphone, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my journey settle into a sense of purpose. Survival, I began, my voice steady and clear, isn't just about getting through the crisis. It's about using that experience to build something stronger, something better than what existed before. The words flowed from me, drawn from the depths of my own healing. I saw nods in the audience, students scribbling notes, connecting with the truth I had lived. In the front row, Gina sat beaming with pride, her eyes shining like they did on my wedding day, though back then, her smile had hidden reservations about George. Beside her was Uncle Elliot, his silver hair neatly combed, holding 2-year-old Mabel on his lap. Mabel, my little miracle, wiggled with energy, her dark eyes, so much like her father's, sparkling with innocent curiosity. But she had none of his deceit. Instead, she carried my stubborn determination and Gina's quick wit, making her a force even at such a young age. After class, the students filed out, some lingering to ask questions or share their own stories. It warmed me to see how my words resonated. We gathered our things and headed across the leafy campus paths to the coffee shop, a cozy spot tucked between ancient oaks. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh brewed coffee and autumn leaves. Dr. Beckham was already there, waiting at our usual table by the window, her smile warm and genuine. She had fought her own battles since Stacy's schemes tore her world apart. After a grueling legal appeal, she had reclaimed her medical license, proving her innocence in the fabricated drug theft scandal. Now, she was back at Metropolitan General, working under Uncle Elliot's direction. Her 2 children, now teenagers, had returned to live with her full-time. Their father's arrest for embezzlement, desperate attempts to fund his side of the custody war, had shifted everything in her favor. Seeing her thrive reminded me that justice, though slow, could prevail. How does it feel? Dr. Beckham asked as we settled in, steaming mugs in hand. The sunlight filtered through the windows, casting a golden hue over our group. Like justice, I replied honestly, stirring my coffee. Like the world finally makes sense again. We clinked our cups in a quiet toast, the simple act feeling profound after all we had endured. George was locked away in a federal penitentiary, his days structured and confined. His background as a cardiologist made him useful there, treating inmates and earning some protection from the harsher elements of prison life. He wouldn't be eligible for parole until Mabel turned 27, a distant future I rarely dwelled on. Assuming he even made it that long, prison wasn't kind to men like him, no matter their skills. Vincent Caruso, the shadowy figure who had pulled so many strings, had cut a deal for 12 years in exchange for testifying against his own associates. Several of them faced even longer sentences, their empire crumbling under the weight of the evidence we had uncovered. It was a ripple effect from that one photograph and note, turning personal betrayal into a broader takedown. Stacy's fate brought a different kind of closure. She had appealed her conviction twice, arguing ineffective counsel and judicial bias, but both attempts were swiftly denied. She would remain behind bars until Mabel graduated high school, a timeline that stretched out like a shadow over her life. Knowing she couldn't harm anyone else from her cell gave me peace. Mrs. Florence, ever the fierce advocate, had negotiated a substantial settlement from the hospital's insurance for their failure to properly vet and supervise Stacy. The funds had covered all my legal battles, supported my return to education, and established a secure trust fund for Mabel's future. But the real victory was using part of it to launch a victim advocacy program at the hospital itself, offering counseling, legal aid, and safe resources for women trapped in domestic violence. It turned my pain into a lifeline for others. "Any word from George?" Gina asked, gently bouncing Mabel on her knee to keep her entertained. "He's still sending letters," I said, glancing at my sister. "The prison forwards them straight to Mrs. Florence. She files them away. I don't bother reading. I don't need his apologies or twisted explanations anymore." "Good," Uncle Elliot said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of a protector. "Some bridges are better left burned to the ground." We sat there, sipping our coffees, the conversation light and easy. Mabel tugged at Uncle Elliot's tie, declaring in her toddler babble that she wanted to be a baby doctor, just like him. We laughed as she waved her toy medical kit around, pretending to check our heartbeats. It was these small moments that healed me most, the everyday joys that had seemed impossible during the storm. As I watched her play, I reflected on the profound changes in my life. I had lost a marriage that was never real, but in its place, I discovered an inner strength I didn't know I possessed. I had lost my naive trust in people, the kind that blinds you to red flags, but I gained a sharp clarity, an ability to see through deception before it could take root. Most of all, I had lost the woman I used to be, timid, hopeful in all the wrong ways, but I had become someone far more powerful, resilient, and unyielding. Mabel's little silver locket caught the afternoon light as she moved, the chain glinting like a promise. Inside was a cherished photo of us on the day she finally came home from the NICU, her tiny face peaceful against my chest, both of us battered but alive. We were survivors of a calculated attempt to erase us before we could even fight back. That image had become more than a memento, it served as key evidence in the trials, a visual testament that despite George and Stacy's efforts to eliminate us, we had not only endured but flourished. My phone buzzed on the table, pulling me from my thoughts. It was Rosa, who had transitioned from my personal bodyguard to the head of security for my growing psychology practice. Her text read, "New client wants to schedule a consultation. Says she heard your interview on NPR and needs help dealing with a domestic violence situation. Interested?" I paused, looking around at the faces that meant the world to me, Mabel's innocent grin, Gina's supportive nod, Uncle Elliot's steady presence, Dr. Beckham's knowing smile. This was the life I had rebuilt from the rubble of betrayal, piece by painstaking piece. And now, another woman was reaching out, her voice echoing the desperation I once felt, searching for a way out of the darkness. "Tell her I'll see her tomorrow," I texted back, my fingers steady on the screen. Because this was the core of what I had learned through it all. The best revenge isn't merely surviving the harm inflicted on you. It's transforming that survival into something radiant and meaningful, a foundation that lifts others from their own depths. It's crafting a life filled with purpose, surrounded by those who truly deserve your love and trust. And sometimes, the sweetest form of justice is simply having the strength to guide the next person from victim to survivor, one step at a time. Strolling across the campus in the warm afternoon glow, with Mabel chattering happily about her toy stethoscope, insisting it could fix boo-boos, I realized something profound. George and Stacy had unwittingly given me a gift they never intended, the absolute certainty that I was capable of anything. They had tried to shatter me completely, but in their failure, they had forged me into someone unbreakable, a woman who could weather any storm. That realization fueled me like nothing else. It was a power I would carry forever, using it to empower others to unearth their own hidden strength. The nightmare that had consumed my days was finally over, buried in the past. My new life stretched ahead, full of promise and light, and I knew deep down it was going to be nothing short of extraordinary. But let me take you back a bit, to how this all solidified in those 2 years. After the trials wrapped up, the media frenzy didn't die down overnight. Reporters camped outside my home, microphones ready for any soundbite. I learned to navigate it, turning interviews into platforms for advocacy. That NPR segment Rosa mentioned? It was one of many where I shared my story, not for pity, but to highlight the signs of betrayal and abuse that so many overlook. In those early months post-trial, therapy became my anchor. I dove into my dissertation research with renewed vigor, interviewing survivors, analyzing patterns of recovery. It wasn't just academic, it was personal healing. Mabel's milestones, her first steps, her babbling words, marked my own progress, each one a victory over the darkness George and Stacy had tried to impose. Gina stayed with me longer than planned, her corporate law skills turning into a force for our family's protection. She helped set up the advocacy program, connecting it with networks in Chicago. Uncle Elliot, ever the steady hand, expanded the hospital's policies, ensuring no one like Stacy slipped through again. Dr. Beckham and I formed a bond beyond doctor-patient. We became collaborators, her medical insights complementing my psychological approach in workshops for abuse survivors. Mabel grew like a weed, her personality blooming. She had George's eyes, yes, but they held a spark of joy, not calculation. Watching her play, I often wondered about nature versus nurture. She was proof that we can rise above our origins, shaped by love and resilience rather than deceit. The settlement money didn't just sit in accounts. Beyond the trust fund, it funded scholarships for women pursuing education after abuse, something I pushed for in memory of my own struggles. My practice started small, a rented office with Rosa at the door, but grew as word spread. Clients came from all walks, each story echoing parts of mine, each session reinforcing my path. George's letters? They arrived like clockwork, but I never opened one. Mrs. Florence summarized if needed, mostly pleas for forgiveness, claims of change. I didn't care. His words held no power anymore. Stacy, from what I heard through legal channels, stewed in her cell, her appeals exhausting every avenue. Her hatred couldn't touch me now. Life wasn't perfect. Nightmares still crept in, flashes of that office scene or the kick to my belly. But therapy tools helped, and Mabel's laughter chased them away. Family dinners with Gina and Uncle Elliot became routine, filled with stories and support. Dr. Beckham joined often, her kids bonding with Mabel like cousins. That NPR interview was a turning point. I spoke openly about betrayal's long shadow, how growth comes from facing it head-on. Calls flooded in afterward, women seeking guidance. Rosa vetted them, her military background ensuring safety. The new client's message felt like fate, a chance to pay forward the help I'd received. As we lingered at the coffee shop, Mabel dozed on Uncle Elliot's shoulder. Gina shared updates from Chicago, her life-balancing career and visits here. Dr. Beckham talked about a new hospital initiative, inspired by our program. These connections, forged in fire, were my true wealth. Walking back, the campus alive with students rushing to classes, I felt grounded. Mabel's hand in mine, her stethoscope dangling, symbolized hope. George and Stacy's unintended gift, their attempt to destroy me, had backfired spectacularly. It ignited a fire within, proving my capabilities beyond doubt. I would harness that forever, guiding others to their strength. The horrors were behind me. Ahead lay a life of meaning, love, and endless possibility. It was mine to shape, and I was ready.